Hi, all. My name is Debbie Drinkwater, and I am a teacher with Palm Beach Virtual. So I taught in the classroom for 8 years, and then I made the transition to teaching online, and I've been an online teacher now for 12 years. I also have my master's degree in educational technology with a focus on online teaching. So now that the entire world has kind of been thrown into this environment of remote learning, online learning, I'm really feeling like I want to reach out. I want to help. I want to help teachers, parents, students make this transition to virtual learning. So I just wanted to go over some things with you today as we're all kind of beginning this transition that hopefully will help you as parents to make it easier for you, make it easier for your children, and take a little bit of stress off of what is happening right now. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, because I have seen some great memes on social media about homeschooling, how we're all homeschooling now, and some of the challenges of that. And so part of that's true. Obviously, our students are now at home working. But I did want to talk about the difference between homeschool and virtual school because there's often this misconception that they are one and the same when in fact they are quite different. So, homeschool, obviously the students work from home, but their parents act as their full-time instructors. Parents decide what, when, and how students learn. Those students are exempt from standardized tests like the FSA and the EOCs in Florida, and those students do not earn a diploma simply from finishing, the 13 years of school. With virtual school, the only similarity there is that the students work from home. However, now we have that the teachers are managing the student studies from afar with a structured curriculum. The teachers decide what, when, and how students learn. And so that portion is really important because I've seen some advice circulating from a homeschool teacher, which is wonderful that these people are reaching out and offering their help. And this particular piece of advice talks about the time that it takes and how it says that really with homeschool, elementary students only need maybe 2 hours, and middle school only 3, and high school only 4. And so I really wanted to address that because while that may be true for homeschooling, remember that in virtual school, parents don't decide, how students are going to learn or when they're going to learn or how much time that's going to take. So I can't really tell you, how much time, your child is going to need to learn. But that's not up to the parents like it is with homeschool. So it's important to remember that. Hopefully teachers and certainly I've reached out that teachers should be flexible with understanding that this is a big transition for kids and for families and to not overload them. But it's also important to remember that the teachers are the ones that decide. So when you see this advice that says, oh, they only need 2 hours of education, what the teachers are putting forth is what the students need to do. That might be 2 hours or it might be 6 hours a day. So it is important that we are encouraging our kids to complete the work that the teachers are assigning. The parent's role with virtual school is to act as what we call in the environment a learning coach, right? And so I think hopefully that alleviates some stress for parents because I think that's a big burden that people have felt is that how am I going to teach my children? And with virtual school, you're not. That is not your job. That's not something being asked of you. Your teachers are still there. My own son is in sixth grade, and I struggle with helping with his sixth grade math. So certainly, if we have kids taking calculus, we don't feel qualified, and we don't need to be because the teachers are still there providing the instruction and providing the assistance that our kids need. Obviously, our students still must take and pass standardized tests. In Florida, the testing has been canceled for this year. So we don't have that stress of worrying about, are our kids going to be prepared for this year's test? But it is important to remember again, moving forward, that they do have that requirement. So we want to make sure that they are completing what the teachers assign so that going forward, they are still prepared for those tests. And of course, our virtual students do earn a diploma. So I do want to say here again, with some parents that I've talked to that have this huge concern of, I'm not going to be able to get my child to sit down for 5 or 6 hours a day. Um, Again, I've taught tens of thousands of students online, and I do feel confident that many of our kids can and will succeed in this environment. But certainly if you find that it's not working, that you just can't get your child to do that, homeschool is an option. You can switch your student to homeschool and then have those, more control over, when they learn or how many hours that's going in. But right now we're all in the virtual environment, which is a public school environment. So it is important to remember that the teachers are going to dictate that. But I have, all the confidence that the teachers are going to be very flexible in understanding that this is a huge transition. To try not to worry about, your child sitting there all day in front of the computer. So the parental role, again, this is where a lot of stress comes from for parents. What is my job? What do I have to do? You might possibly still be having to go to work and you're very concerned because your child is at home working without someone there to monitor all day, or you may be working from home and having your child working in that same environment with you. So what is it that is expected from you as your child moves forward with virtual learning? Daily and weekly monitoring. So daily checking in on the progress of your child, especially at the beginning of their virtual school experience, is critical. We want to get them off to a good start. So check in daily. But again, that doesn't have to be a huge time commitment for you. So if you are at work at the end of your workday, just ask your child, hey, open up your Google Classroom, if that's the environment they're in, and show me what you did today. And you can look at what the teacher's assigned. You can look at what's been submitted. You can check any grades that the teacher has given. And you can affirm their on-task behavior, that they are logging in and doing what the teacher is asking. So, that's not a huge time commitment. It's just that monitoring, checking in daily so that, your child does know that you are on top of, what's getting done during the day if, you're not there watching over them. Again, even if you are, especially if you have an older student, you want to try to put that on them to get this done, but you're just monitoring. And the great part about virtual school is that you have that ability. You have that ability to go right into their classroom, so to speak, and see what they've done real time, what's been submitted, what's been graded. Encourage and motivate, right? This is definitely a huge transition for our kids. And so just encouraging all the successes that they have. Praise or reward those successes if they're completing work on time, if they're getting a good grade. That's just important. Keep them motivated so that, they're feeling confident in this environment. And, just like our students sometimes ask us for help with homework, they might say, Mom, I don't understand this. Can you help me? It's important that, you're encouraging without giving answers, which can be easier to do sometimes. And certainly remember, if something becomes too difficult, they don't seem to understand what you're explaining, you're not sure about the assignment or the work, you or your child should contact that teacher and request help. Sometimes it's hard to remember that the teacher is there since they're not in front of you, but they are. And, they will let you know the different ways to contact them, whether it be text or email or phone or online office hours or a chat room, but they will definitely be available for that help. So don't feel in any way that the parent is responsible for teaching or for explaining something that is difficult for your child. This one is hugely important, okay? The number one piece of advice that I give my students when they come to virtual school full-time is time management. And that means creating and following a specific schedule. And that schedule can certainly fit your child's learning style and their needs. So I know some parents have been really stressed out about this idea of a strict schedule. Why does it work? Well, think about when your child is in the classroom, whether they're in elementary school, middle, high school, they have a strict schedule during the day. They have a time, in elementary school for language arts, and then math, and then recess, and then special, and then lunch. Middle and high school, right? They have a bell that rings that signals they go to the next class. So our children are used to strict schedules. So how do we make a smooth transition from the building to virtual school? We keep that idea of a strict schedule that we follow every day, Monday through Friday. But the difference is you can dictate that schedule unless, there might be teachers that want to have live lessons at certain times. But for the most part, you should be able to dictate that schedule and works for you, right? So you can try different schedules until you find one that works. If you create a schedule that doesn't seem to be working, don't stress out, revise it. Don't expect to have the online school system figured out right away, right? Teachers understand that. Teachers haven't all figured it out, and families will need some time to adjust as well. Incorporate your students' interests into that schedule, right? Since the learning day can be personalized here, talk to your child about how he or she would like the schedule to be organized. Maybe they want to sleep into 11 and you don't agree with that, but you can come to kind of a schedule negotiation and say, well, how about 9 instead? And definitely include breaks. The biggest concern is my kid can't sit in front of a computer. The one thing I would say is that remember that our students are sitting for very long periods of time in the building. They are very capable of sitting and learning for long periods of time, but certainly we know our own kids and we know how long that's possible for them at home. So if that's 30 minutes, you can schedule work in 30-minute breaks. If it's 2 hours for your child, you can schedule work in 2-hour breaks, but definitely work in that time. Because anyone who spends a long period of time on a task, they're going to grow tired, they're going to lose motivation. So they need that time to re-energize every once in a while. So add those breaks throughout the schedule. Again, it's important to put them in the schedule and not just have your child say, I need a break, because then we're not having a schedule, right? So add those throughout, encourage them to go for a walk, eat a snack, play a game, something to re-energize so that they're ready to go back and work. So I have a few sample schedules on there. Elementary, middle, and high. And so, for example, in elementary school, that I have, they have math, then a break, language arts, a snack, science, lunch, social studies special. Again, younger kids need more breaks, and they definitely need, probably more help and more encouragement. With middle and high school, I tend to have the schedule where the students are working, a couple of classes back to back, and then a break. Lunch, a couple of classes back to back. Again, these are just sample schedules. The great thing about virtual is there are, probably is some flexibility depending on what the teachers decide, where you can talk about, hey, what time do you want your day to start? Do you want to sleep in and do you want to start your day at 9? That's okay. Just know you're going to work a little bit later into the day. Would you rather get up at 7 and, have your work done early and be able to get out and play while it's still light out? So talk to your student, let them have some ownership of that schedule so they feel like it works for them and it feels doable to them. And again, revisit it after the end of that first week, see how it's working. If you need to tweak, that's great. Learning environment. It is very important. Another thing we always recommend is to have a good learning environment as much as you can. You might be able to see in the background, like my workstation is in the living room. So again, I understand that we can't always have an organized, quiet workspace, right, without distractions. But do the best that you can. Even if you can just set up a little, corner in your child's room, with a makeshift desk if they don't have one, a little laptop desk. But just try to have a space where that they can go and do work and have that daily schedule visible for them as a reminder of what they should be focused on, and minimize distractions as much as you can. Again, that's definitely hard to avoid at home. People are ringing the doorbell, delivering groceries, or the dog's barking, or you're working. Of course, there will be distractions, but just the idea of give them that time to work when you can and minimize those distractions. As my baby's toy is going off in the background. So I do want to just say that as all of this has been going on, and it's such a stressful, time for all of us because we don't have a lot of control over, what's happening right now. But I know I've been trying to look at the benefits to our current situation, right? We're kind of forced to be at home, and obviously there are scary things going on outside of that environment. But I've noticed that, because we're not running to sports and other things, we all sit down together and have dinner at night. and we spend a lot of family time together. And so I've been trying to focus on those benefits. So I just kind of want to end today by saying, try to think about the benefits of virtual learning. It's not something that any of you chose, and I understand that, and that makes it very stressful. But because we're in this situation, try and think about the benefits to the fact that your student is having this time online. With virtual school, students can learn at their own pace, right? So in the classroom, they might have 45 minutes to complete a task or to understand a task that that teacher has to put out to the 20 students in the class. But at home, if they understand that concept and can get it done in 30 minutes, they can do that. And if it takes them 2 hours, they can do that. And so that being able to kind of go at their own pace is very beneficial. You might have a student who's introverted and typically wouldn't participate in class or raise their hand. And with the online environment, you might find that they're able to open up and participate more because they're not face-to-face, and that kind of embarrassment factor, that shy factor, can come down. Students, for some part, can have individualized schedules. Again, I don't know what all the teachers are going to decide. Some might want to have some live lessons. Some might want to just have office hours. Some might just put the content online and the students, do it at their own pace. But for the most part, they're going to be able to have some individualized schedules. So if if the big struggle in your house is pulling those kids out of bed at 7 a.m., great, we can have a schedule that avoids that. And so now we're going to have a nice leisurely morning and start our schedule a little later. Students have fewer distractions. That might seem impossible right now because there's so much going on at home with everyone there. But, they don't have 25 other bodies around them, talking and pulling their attention away. So especially if you have that set learning space for them, they can often get the work done, much more quickly than they could in a classroom. Also, you're able to have more involvement in their children's education. Parents tell me that all the time when they make the transition to virtual. Wow, I hear from my teachers all the time. I know what they're doing all of the time because that classroom is essentially right there in front of you. You can check in every day, just take 5 minutes and look at what they've done. And so you're really able to be involved. So I know the number one fear is, how am I going to get my kids to work? How am I going to monitor that they're working? It doesn't have to take a lot of time, and it is quite accessible to be able to see what they've done. And students are prepared for the 21st century learning and work environments, right? Most colleges you saw made that seamless transition to online learning, before we did, because they're set up for that. Most colleges have total online curriculums. Work environments have online training. In the state of Florida, every student has to have at least one virtual credit to graduate. So we obviously already know that our students need this time in the virtual world, and so they're getting that now. So try and look at those benefits, because as you're sitting home and you're stressed because you're trying to get your student to sit on the computer and work, and you're trying to get your work done and all this craziness, try and say, there are some benefits to this. And again, I know that teachers are going to be flexible. I'll remind you to be flexible with them because this is new for your teachers as well. And communicate with them as well. If your child is really struggling and you're doing, all of these things, you've created a schedule and you're checking in every day, but they're just not making that transition easily, talk to your teacher and let them know. A couple other benefits I put up here: e-learning can cover up to 5 times the material of instructor-led training in the same amount of time, because again, we don't have those distractions. We have that individualized learning. E-learning increases retention rates up to 60% because the student isn't just sitting back and soaking up the teacher talking, but they have to interact. And I can definitely verify for that, because I did my master's degree online, and I feel like I learned so much because I had such control and had to interact. And then as an English teacher, I just want to end with Robert Frost's wise words: the best way out is always through, right? We will get through this, but we can't get out of it. This is, what we have to go through. So let's dive in. Let's dive in together. I'm here to help. I will definitely be posting more videos and I want you to reach out to me. I'll be posting my email. So please reach out if you have questions. If I can help in any way in making this transition easier, I definitely want to do that for you. Thanks for listening.